B. Bryan Preserve is a private conservation center for and maintenance of rare and endangered African hoofstock. Our long-term mission is to ensure that these species are around in large numbers in 100 years or so. But as long as their tracts of land are being taken over by human activity, you're going to have a run-in between livestock and these native species, and then native species are going to lose. And people will always say, you know, well, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, I don't need to worry about it, or my kid's lifetime. Well, I'm seeing things happening right now in my lifetime I never dreamed that would be occurring. But the root of the whole problem is there's too many people on this earth. It's overpopulated. What do we have now, 7 billion people? What are we going to do in 100 years when there's 20 billion people on this earth?
I do it because I like it. I love animals. Pretty much my way of, you know, I guess living the dream. This is so much work, but to me, it's just not really work. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's
something that we enjoy, taking care of these animals and breeding them and watching the babies grow. The 3 antelope species that we have, I think, are the most beautiful antelope in the world. Well, Judy and I both have resources. You know, you could either spend that money on traveling the world, collecting cars, collecting homes, whatever. We've elected to do what we're doing.
Again, I have a real job, so that helps with offset some of the expenses. Both of us were fortunate to have good careers, so we had, at one time, good 401ks, providing people with an opportunity to see some of the prettiest and, in the case of the zebra, some of the rarest animals in the world. So the Giraffe zebra probably will be extinct in the wild, you know, within 10 or 15 years.
Playing a very important role in those species because they're disappearing.
We do have a foundation. We started a foundation just recently, and it's the B. Bryan Preserve Wildlife Foundation, and it's to help with the conservation of the zebra and giraffe.
Turned into a conservationist. It's my passion. You know, the Giraffe are very, very rare. There's got to be less than 2,000 of them left in the world, and they're disappearing at an alarming rate.
There's a lot of different levels of measurement as to what the endangered status is of an animal, whether it's at risk, whether it's conservation dependent, whether it's endangered or critically endangered. And then, of course, the last one is extinct. And it could be extinct in the wild or totally extinct. None of the 3 species that we have are endangered at the moment. The kudu are actually doing quite well in Africa, and they're on the conservation dependent list, which means that they do need people to start conserving the species, but they're not at risk of moving into the endangered category. The roan antelope are on the at-risk category. When we first got them, they were conservation dependent. B. Bryan Preserve is a breeding preserve for antelope, African antelope, and critically endangered zebra. And basically, it's not a zoo. The animals are in big fields. Our goal is to preserve the different species that we have here. Located on 100 acres, all high fenced in, and high fence I mean 8 to 10 foot fences. Each of our species of animals are in large enclosures. Enclosures could range from 6 acres to 35 acres.
I believe in captive breeding programs to where you can provide all their necessities and keep them away from diseases. Well, we provide stock for all of North America. But what the bachelor groups do is, if you're actively breeding, your males, when they get to a certain age, you put them in with other males. If there's no females around and you structure it properly, you can manage them quite well. And also we'll get other males in here. We put them in the bachelor group because they're what we call our bullpen. We constantly change to adapt to improve our management practices.
At B. Bryan Preserve, we are USDA inspected. And it's funny because when I mentioned that to somebody, they said, well, do you eat your animals? Because they think of USDA as, you know, governing the beef plants and stuff, but that's, USDA is in charge of a lot of agriculture. So we are USDA inspected, and we are inspected by California Fish and Game, and we also have permits for every one of our animals through California Fish and Game. We are members of the American Zoological Association, which is the zoos. So we have a lot of paperwork that goes along with that, inspections that go along with that. Being members of the American Zoological Association has really helped and the internet has helped because there's a lot of information available online from places in Africa, from places all over the world that talk about, how to care for antelope. And so a lot of the zoo materials are available now via the internet. I was raised on a farm. So my father's in the cattle business. I had pigs, I had horses, I had cattle, and had been to Africa several times. Wanted to be a vet, but I don't like school.
Well, I was raised on a dairy farm here in California. I had raised livestock, sheep and cattle, and got my degrees, bachelor degrees, masters, and PhD in animal science and biochemistry, but my degrees were in either animal husbandry or animal science. I majored in some of these things in college, had livestock before, and livestock, very similar to the antelope here, they're ruminants, and zebra are horses. If you've been around livestock and had experiences in raising them, or you've had the education, it makes it a lot easier to do a good performance in taking care of them.
We picked zebra because horses have always been one of my favorites. I had ponies and horses growing up. Who doesn't want a striped pony? But a lot of the stuff when we first started was trial and error. But again, the antelope that we had, especially the sable and the roan, are pretty tough. And, you just take care of them like you would any other animal. And things take care of themselves.
On one of my trips, I came home with a small breeding group of sable antelope, and that's how we got started. Mabel the sable was our first animal that we brought in.
So I think Mabel likes where she is. She has a lot of room. She gets fed every day. She doesn't have any predators coming after her. And she's not in some little small enclosure. She's not at home, but she probably has a better chance of surviving here and living her 15 to 18 year lifespan than she did in Africa and in a healthier environment. Yeah, sable were the first ones we got. And I think it was because Frank just fell in love with seeing the male sable, which is probably the most majestic animal. They are also one of the most aggressive animals. So you don't see them a lot in big herds in zoos. You'll see pairs or maybe three. The females are all chocolate brown, gorgeous color of chocolate brown. And the males turn jet black when they're about 5 years old. And the horns really sweep back in a big curve over their head like the letter C. 13, 14 sable antelope together in a big 20 acre field, which is similar, or as close as you can get to their African habitat as possible. You get to see them all kind of interacting together. You get to see them running around. If it's a whole group of a bachelor herd, you get to see them fighting a little bit like boys do. So you'll see herds of roan together. You'll see sable. We've got a 14 animal group of zebra that are quite fun to watch. 14 zebra together, especially at feeding time. Well, the roan was actually an antelope that I had never really heard of before. And you don't see a lot of roan in zoos. Again, they're in the same type of family as the sable. They're large antelope, one of the largest group of antelope. They are extremely aggressive, big horns, a lot of body in an 800-pound male, a lot of mass in the front of an 800-pound male roan bull. They are known for their mask on their faces. They have these gorgeous faces with masks with these white teardrops coming down their eyes, nice curved horns. And you can look at a roan antelope and see where Africans get the idea of mask from. They got just gorgeous masked faces. Big ears that stick out with little tufts on the ends of them. And they're just great animals. You have to watch out for them because they can be aggressive again. But the way they interact with each other, the little squeaking noises that the babies call their moms with, they're fun to watch when they're running around the pasture, and then they have a nice little prance when they get excited, and they start prancing. And I said the sable were my favorite, but I'm talking like the roan's my favorite. So I don't know. It's hard to have not have a favorite. Kudu are a little different because they are kind of shy creatures. They are browsers, which means they like to browse off of bushes and trees. And because they're shy, they like to be they're in a field where it has a lot of cover to it. But the kudu are born with nice little stripes down their back, on their bellies, on their sides. They have what's called a chevron between their eyes, which is kind of a white little marking between their eyes. They have 3 little dots on their cheeks, which the Africans say is God put his hand around the kudu's head and said, "You're the most beautiful antelope in the world," and left his fingerprints there. So you have these 3 little dots. Kind of a cute got milk mustache. Large ears. They're a really tall antelope, really thin legged. You wonder how they are able to walk with their big body on those thin legs. And the males have these tremendous curved horns. They can run very fast, and they're fun to watch in the field when they're running around because they jump over the bushes and their white tails flip up. And
what we found with the kudu is that they love fruit, and that probably evolved through evolution from eating off of the high bushes and the trees, and that's where all the fruit is at. And through the evolution, they've acquired what I would call a sweet tooth, and they absolutely love apples, carrots, bananas, any type of fruit. It's funny to watch them, even apples. If you've gotten old rotten apples, they love them.
well, the funny thing is, people think a zebra is a zebra is a zebra. But one of the nice things about where we have our zebra right now is you can actually see the 2 side by side. And once you really do that, you can tell that there's a big distinct difference between the 2 species that we have. The mountain zebra is the smallest species of zebra. The mountain zebra has 2 distinctive features about it. If you look at its tail and its rump, it's got kind of a little zipper stitching pattern that goes down its back to its tail. And it also has a dewlap, which is extra skin under its neck. And that's the only zebra that has those two physical characteristics. Well, they all have a different pattern, like a fingerprint. A zebra is, each one is totally different from the other. But the other thing about the zebra is that they're not symmetrical, so each side of the zebra is going to be different. So you can typically look at the right side of a Grevy, and along there, right under their eyes, there's usually the striping pattern maybe doing something different. In the Grevy zebra, there are about 1,800 to 2,000 left in the world, and there's only about 1,000 left in the wild. So that zebra is on the critically endangered species list. They are located on a sanctuary, primarily a sanctuary in Kenya, and a few wild ones left in Ethiopia and parts of Kenya. The problem right now in 2010 is that Kenya is going through a pretty significant drought, and those animals are not reproducing at all. There's no water. There's very little water. There's very little food. There's a lot of human encroachment. So the mares are not able to produce milk, so they're not going to have any foals. So that population is not doing as well and not growing. But the Grevy zebra is a real important mission for the American Zoological Association, and actually the people of Kenya as well. So hopefully those numbers will improve. Maybe a little over 1% of the population of Grevy zebra right here in Point Arena. It's a little small town of like 500 people. And we're located right off of Highway 1, historic Highway 1. I mean, I can see Point Arena from our home. And the zebra right now you can see them from Highway 1. So when we first came in, people didn't really know what to think about what we were going to do. Some people thought we were going to be just a drive-by zoo with animals in cages, which would not have worked in Point Arena because we're a real liberal town. But once people got to know us and understood what our goal was going to be, and what the project was and what we had done in the past, the town's really come to embrace us. I think they really like the thought of having zebra in a small town in Northern California on the coast. We have a pier and a wharf on one end and a historic lighthouse on the other, and zebra right in the middle. I mean, who wouldn't like that? and the opportunity came up to move permanently here. And this was always our choice, was this little small town in Northern California on the coast. I mean, who wouldn't like it? It's a great place. As far as it being totally different from Africa, it's totally different from what people believe Africa to be like. But most of our animals are from southern and eastern Africa, which the climate is not that drastically different. If you look at a lot of the plants and things in the San Francisco area, along the coast, a lot of them are South African plants. And the climate is, in my opinion, better because you don't have that heat that you have in Africa in the middle of the day. And here they get the nice, cool climate pretty much all day long. The climate here doesn't fluctuate that much. It doesn't get drastically cold and then come up hot again. It's pretty much a tempered climate. We are known for our fog in Point Arena, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. But the animals seem to adjust. If you give an animal energy, the right food and the right water, then they're going to do fine. Yeah, we anticipate our giraffe barn is probably going to cost close to $100,000 for the barn. It will house 6 adult giraffe. And so, yes, we had 3 or 4 people that helped put the sides of the barn up because it's obviously a very tall barn. And then we will handle most of the interior work ourselves. But all told, it'll probably cost about $100,000 for us to be able to put that giraffe barn up.
I would say it's modeled after a giraffe house from a place in Ohio called the Wilds. Even though we've seen many other structures, this one seemed to be the most functional for us. A facility that will be good for the animals to keep them away from the weather, and it'll also be a great facility for people to come and view the animals for education. A longer term, we want to build another facility to where we can also breed the rare Maasai giraffe. That's our long-term goal. Same with our giraffe house that we're building right now. We'll have reclaimed wood on its siding. All the windows will be reclaimed, floors will be reclaimed. Maybe a higher percentage than 25% will be reclaimed. The giraffe house is going to have Frank Lloyd Wright windows in them. Designs are to accommodate doors that'll automatically open. It'll be a well-insulated structure. On the outside, it'll be reclaimed cedar.
I think that is probably the greatest animal in the world, the most unusual, the most beautiful. Giraffe would be the only other thing I'd like to get.
Getting giraffe is a combination. It meets several objectives. There is a need for conservation. Giraffes are not endangered right now. Some species, subspecies are, but most are not. But their numbers are decreasing at an alarming rate, and therefore they're a species in decline in their native country. And so conservation is important, but also giraffe, like zebra, they represent the animal kingdom. They're the most popular animal that people like to see, and therefore they can be a spokesman for other species in terms of educating people in the need to save these animals. Because we're conservationists, most people don't understand that giraffe are on the decline in their native Africa. It's really funny to talk to different government agencies, and if they're not endangered, they're saying they don't need to be protected. Well, that's silly. You're going to wait until they're just about extinct to start protecting them. Giraffe, in the last 15 years, their numbers have alarmingly dropped by 30% in Africa. In this country, our long-range plans for giraffe are to, number one, are to maintain a bachelor group of giraffe. And what that will do is help the zoos. See, because the zoos are limited in space, and they like to breed giraffe, but they have to get their males out right away. And they don't like to sell them to unknown parties. We're trying to help the zoos out, whereby we maintain a male group of giraffe here so that they can continue to breed, number one, and number two, that they can use it as a gene pool whenever they need to bring a bull back for genetics. They can do that.
Typically, we start, the day at 7:30. It's not like milking cows, so we're not up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you kind of go out and do a head count, make sure all the noses are there. Some of the animals get a little bit of hay in the mornings. We're fortunate that we have everybody in large pastures, so they don't completely rely on us for all of their food needs. So, and then it's typically mending fences, repairing a water trough that somebody's kicked, cleaning out a barn, you know, cleaning up hay, putting up feed, that kind of stuff. And then there's a lot of the normal stuff that any business has to do. Paying the bills, reconciling the books, putting in data into the computer system. The busiest part of the day, I guess, is towards the end of the day is when we give everybody their big feed. And that could be the time that we administer the medicines as well, because the animals love us when it's time for them to get fed. When it's pouring down rain and you've got to put on your yellow rain suit, and you know, you wear glasses and you can't see anything, and you know, you've had a long day and you're not in a good mood, it probably starts off being, you know, why am I doing this? But by the time you get around to the second barn, and you know, whatever was wrong with the whole day is gone by then, because it's very rewarding, even when it is pouring down rain.
Periodically, we will move animals if we need to treat them, or if we have young offspring that are maturing. For example, males, we have to routinely pull them out of the fields and put them into the bachelor groups.
I would say I love these animals like they're my pets, but they are not pets. They are wild animals. They can kill you if they want to. They're loved like pets, but they don't get petted. But it's something I never get tired of doing. I didn't think I would get attached to every one of my animals, which I do. Every one of them has a name. You know, I know every one of them. I'm also surprised at how, I don't know if it's easy to take care of them, or it's just easy because we love what we're doing. Probably is more like it, because some people say, oh, I can't believe you do that. But so I'm surprised that it's not something I've gotten tired of. I mean, it's just something I love to do. You know, typically what happens is if we go somewhere, 2 days later we're ready to come home because we miss our animals. So, especially someone else. But yeah, you know, the first day it's like, yay, I'm away from everything. And the second day it's, you want to pick up the phone and call each animal and ask how they're doing. You know, so you miss it, so you want to come back to it.
Well, I can't read my animals' minds, but when I watch their body language out there, when they're running and jumping and leaping around and sparring, and it looks to me like they're very happy. I guess I've decided to punish myself by doing what I'm doing, but I love it. Judy loves it. And it's very gratifying to protect these animals and try to increase their numbers. Well, I think it's important. We share this earth with a lot of animals, and I think that we've got to think about this. What are we going to do in 100 years when there's 20 billion people on Earth? And most all of the animals that we know of are gone. You've got to really ask yourself, what kind of quality of life is that? I would say, think about that, because most people think of it in much more short term. You know, what's good for me and right now? And then they say, well, it's not going to affect me, it might affect my children. Well, that's not that far away. And all I'm saying is think about it. And is this the way you want the Earth, human habitat, to go?